Welcome to the Motoring Podcast, your weekly discussion of motoring news. This is episode 614 on Tuesday, the 14th of January 2025. Hello, I'm Alan.
Hello, I'm Andrew. And in a week where we learn that invisible pothole problem that has blighted the country will be solved by AI, we'll be astonished by one 23-year-long project. In new car news, it's delightful to talk about an EV car. And in points of interest, we ogle some body kits. And we go straight into the news. There is no follow-up this week. You'll all be delighted to hear.
I am.
Yes. We're going to start with the fact that the Department for Transport has said that it expects no car brands to pay fines on the 2024 zero-emission vehicle mandate. And we could have said that before we got to this point. I mean, I don't understand how anyone was possibly questioning that this might not be the case at all, unless they didn't know what they were talking about, which is probably the reason.
It's a high possibility.
Yes. The way this is set up for at least the first 2 years is there's the ability to buy effectively credits from companies that have exceeded the 22% minimum requirement for zero-emission vehicles to then sort of pool the lack of CO2, for a better word, and even it out and average it out over the industry. Of course, no one was going to, as long as those credits from those companies were not priced at more than £15,000 per car.
Well, no, exactly. And that's great for some of the Chinese EV makers. It's great for Tesla and lots of these companies where there is a high percentage, if not all vehicles, are EVs.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's also one of the ways that some of these companies can keep the prices down, because they know that, well, it's a car plus the credits that the company's going to sell as a result of selling that car down the line. Yeah.
Yep.
Let's see what happens at the end of this year.
Yeah.
At the end of next year. At the end of this year.
I think this year is going to be much trickier.
Just generally.
Yes, exactly.
Just generally.
Exactly.
And, next up, there was incident. I'm not going to call it an accident. There was an incident back at the start of 2023 where a 7-year-old was squashed between his father's car and a Jaguar I-Pace, as the I-Pace driver attempted to park in a car park. The outcome of that is that, as part of the investigation into what happened, is that people said that Jaguar and the I-Pace should have a clearer way of moving between drive and reverse on the I-Pace than it already has. The reason for this, I mean, if you read the linked BBC News story that we've got in the show notes, and you read through it, it's a really tricky one, this, because it's a really horrible thing to have happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you read through the description of the parking, in inverted commas, that is going on, and you just think, you completely and the person who was doing the parking just seemed to have no idea what they were doing, where they were going, how to get anywhere near a parking space, and had hit at least one vehicle first, the way I read it. And it seems that if there's, I don't know, you get this whole thing between, competence generally, and then how easy or hard is it to be certain of whether you're meant to be going forwards or backwards in a vehicle. I think a bit of the backlash on this, and probably one of the reasons it got to the BBC website, was that Jaguar's response was, well, we are completely compliant with the law and all the appropriate regulations, without saying that, well, maybe we'll look into it and see and take those into account in the future. Take the feedback into account in the future, which would have been a more
humane.
Well, no, I think it would just have been a more sympathetic approach to saying, well, we'll see what happens. I mean, I always have a problem with these this is very much an edge case. You read the story, the BBC story, and you find that this is very much a whole host of things. And you think, well, how many I-Paces are there out there? How often this is not, the whole Audi unintended acceleration type thing or any of these. And this is one edge case where it's not necessarily the car is not the key thing at fault here.
Which the coroner did make clear.
Yes, well, they did. That's the thing. And that's what kind of annoys me about the supposed outcry over this.
Yeah, but Jaguar said that they go on about their...
But maybe there could have been a more sympathetic response.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly written by lawyers with no empathy in their body. But to crack on with saying, oh, well, we got 5 stars from Euro NCAP, when that has nothing to do with the gear selector, feels very tone deaf, because that's... What are you trying to say? That doesn't say anything. That's irrelevant to this situation and this particular point that's being raised. I mean, they go on quite rightly to say that there are other manufacturers who use a similar style of buttons to change between the drive modes. And the person involved didn't bother looking. But like you say, but by the way they have responded to this, it comes across poor. It's poor PR for the company. And that's a shame.
Yeah, it is. Well, it's a tough story.
Yeah, it is.
I actually almost vetoed it, to be honest, because it's just...
It is a grim story, but I think it was important for us to share the reaction and how that should have been better. Anyway, let's move on to a good story. Yes, we have one in this whole episode. Don't worry, everybody. And that is that Rolls-Royce...
it's not that bad.
that Rolls-Royce is going to invest £300 million at their Goodwood site ahead of the second EV that will be coming out later this year. Not only will they be able to produce a second EV from their production centre, it will, and I think this is the most important part, enable them to do more personalisation when it comes to the vehicles they make, because that is where the serious wonga really is.
It is. The personalisation stuff's great because it requires incredibly skilled craftsmen, craftspeople, and some of the personalization things really help keep skills alive. I think that's great. I have no problem with them ramping up the personalization as much as they want, the whole sort of bespoke side. I think this is great news.
Yeah, it is. It's brilliant because it shows how successful the company is being.
Well, looking at this, 2024 was a record year for their customization offerings, claiming that the bespoke content in each car increased by 10% year on year. The most likely to be bespoke vehicle is a Phantom Extended, which is not a huge surprise, really. But the Spectre EV was the second most heavily customized, and the buyers from the Middle East added the most bespoke content, I don't think.
Yes, that should shock no one, should it?
Exactly. But right at the minute, they're making 25 to 26 cars a day.
That's a remarkable amount of money. If you look at it from a purely business point of view, that's a remarkable amount of money coming into the business.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations to everybody involved.
I'm sure a remarkable amount of money is going out as well. But yeah, no, that's great. Good news.
Yes.
Oh, gee.
Well,
from the sublime to the ridiculous.
Yes, just to be clear, I have sort of kept these two articles so we could do them in one show and get it out the way rather than have our Tesla stories drip-fed over many shows.
It's less painful for us all that way. Tesla has yet another recall. They basically have the highest number of recalls in the US in 2024, so congratulations. This time, the 15th time in 2024, Tesla is recalling nearly 700,000 vehicles because the warning light on the tire pressure monitoring system has an issue. 7 of the 15, by the way, have been for the cluster truck. And it is being, again, it's included in this, as are the Model Y and the Model 3. That's nice. Most of the recalls, most of the fixes supposedly have been pushed out via over-the-air updates. That's lovely. But others, it's just not possible to do that. Just to remind you of other issues this year, then in... gee whiz. There was 1.8 million vehicles in July when it was discovered that some Model 3, S, X, and Y cars couldn't tell when the boot was open or not. And that's the front one, by the way, so that could mean that it opened when the driver was driving. In February, 2.2 million vehicles because some warning lights on the instrument panel are too small for the appropriate regulations, which is just amateur. Obviously, the seatbelt warning systems, rear view cameras was another classic. Windscreen wiper just not working even on delivery, which simply in the UK would have made it illegal for the road and get another way and accelerator pedals sliding off each other. Tesla accounted for 21% of all US recalls in the through until the end of the third quarter of 2024. Yay! Jolly good. Well done. If you do think your vehicles are included in any of that, then do please check the relevant government websites.
Yes, do. Okay, sticking with Tesla. There's an article on Jalopnik that is titled, Tesla Full Self-Driving Computer Failures Are Bricking Cars and Disabling Features. This is strangely familiar to anyone who's followed us and the Tesla story for some time. If you remember, they had a problem with touchscreens that were not fitted or were not specified to be car standards, and therefore they were breaking.
They were having trouble with the temperature thresholds, weren't they? And the variations.
There was also the chip in them as well that was running out of memory.
Oh, there was not. Yeah, that's true. That was a different thing.
Yeah. But what's happening here is the full self-driving, in inverted commas, as we all know, that is just a driver assistance system, that the computers are failing on that, which is causing knock-on effects to other assistance features, such as making the camera useless. There's no assisted steering, nor the cruise control, and what it requires is to be replaced. Obviously, that causes further problems because, as we know, Tesla's service and repair system is disruptive and slow. So there is that. If you are an owner, I mean, good luck trying to get all that fixed. And I hope nothing serious happens to your car if the computer does give up. Anyway,
speaking of serious things happening in cars, one more in the Andrew Fights Against Technology section this week. Another BBC News story this time. A chap called Mike Johns got into a driverless Waymo taxi, that is, once again, the Jaguar I-Pace, to get a lift to the airport in Scottsdale, Arizona. All was going well until within the car park he was trying to leave, the car just started driving in circles and circles and circles and circles. And the challenge was he wasn't actually able to stop the car or get out.
Or alert the backup drivers to do something.
Yeah, I always thought there was a great big help button in these.
Once more, the glorious future of our autonomous vehicles is proving to be a little bit trickier when it comes to reality.
Yes.
Talking of which, though, going to Scotland.
Well, this one is... This one is an odd one. Sorry, I know I'm stealing Andrew's story, but Stagecoach has announced the end of its world first autonomous bus project after less than 18 months.
Project Cavforth.
It was basically shuttle buses that ran from one side of the Forth Road Bridge to the other side of the Forth Road Bridge, and part of it in the middle, didn't necessarily require a driver. So the bus could pootle over the bridge all on its own. The Stagecoach is saying there's just not been enough usage. It's just not worth running it because it's not, the passenger numbers have just been too low. I don't blame that on the autonomy of the bus, by the way.
No, but they should have known that.
I blame it on the fact that it's a pointless route. It literally goes from one side of the bridge to the other side of the bridge, and there are plenty of other ways to do that, because if you're going from one side to the other side, the chances are you're then wanting to go onwards into Edinburgh, whereas you can just get the train from one end of this route through to the other.
I think that this is whilst real that the numbers are low, I do not believe that is the real reason, because I don't believe this project was set up with it having to pay for itself, considering all the funding that was going into it. So to come out and go, well, it's just not economically viable, that's not how projects work like this. I feel there is more to it than is meeting the eye, and we will never be told how much intervention was needing to be done by the bus captains, as they were called, etc.
You say that, and there's probably there's an amount of truth in that, I'm sure. But as well as that, it's Stagecoach. And Stagecoach doesn't do anything unless there is money in it for Stagecoach. And if they've kind of used up or broken even with the number of grants that they were given at the start of this, then they'll get to that point and then go, yeah, right, there's not enough people. Stop it.
Mm-hmm.
They'll do it until basically the grant money is run out, and then that'll be
that. I can believe, yeah.
I mean, it was such a limited sector, because I believe that it was only as it went over the bridge that it was meant to be autonomous. From when we covered this right back at the start, that it wasn't autonomous all the way. There was the driver could go so far, and then he turned into a bus captain, and then again at the other end, he there was somebody reverted from being a bus captain to a driver again. I love the fact he was there to reassure passengers. He imagines he's walking through the bus going, "Look, Mum, no hands. Look, Mum, no hands."
Yeah.
All rather silly anyway, but
yes.
Yeah, it was a dumb route. The key thing about this is that it was a route purely there for this autonomous bus experiment. It's not a real viable route, as almost anyone would tell you anyway.
But that's what happens when you look into these things more and more, is you actually see the reality of what they are trying to achieve, where they're trying to achieve it, and you sort of go, ooh, so it's.
By the way, they were trying to achieve headlines.
Yeah.
That's what they were trying to achieve with that. And to show, the Scottish government was trying to show how forward it is in these things, and look, technology, come and invest. And that's what that was meant to achieve. That was not meant to achieve a viable public transport route.
It's a bit similar to another announcement from the UK government this week, but anyway.
Yes.
Could you take us to Wales, anyway, or the Heads of the Valley?
Well, I can try to. Heads of the Valleys road project, the A465, it has been completed. Now, we wouldn't normally talk about that kind of thing on here. It's not really something that we'd cover very much. It's not something particularly notable, apart from the fact that the Heads of the Valleys project has taken 23 years.
That's amazing. That's just astonishing.
Which is quite incredible. And that's, by the way, that is to 23 years for 28 miles. So that's almost a year per mile. It was taking the A465 to almost motorway standard, but not quite, it seems. And the idea was that it brought prosperity into one of the UK's most deprived areas, into the former mining villages. Well, obviously, it's a bit late, isn't it?
But at least for the people who live there, they no longer have to worry about cones and contraflow and stuff like that. I mean, if you just run to this is again another BBC News article that's linked in the show notes, and they do a quick list of some of the stuff that has hampered the project. So there was overspends, major delays, devolution, obviously, of the Welsh government, a global pandemic, unsuitable ground for road building, hundreds of carriageway closures. It's remarkable. You think,
I mean, the ground might have been suitable when they started.
Yeah, but really? But I think in the top 5 of things you would try and get right before you started digging would be, is this the right place to put a road? Surely it's somewhere in there.
Yeah. You would think so, wouldn't you? But it very much seems not. Understandably, or unsurprisingly even, it cost £250 million more than was initially revealed and planned for. It's been a bit of a trial, I think.
Yes.
And you can decide which particular trial it's been.
But at least the poor people who live in that area now have a road that they can get to and from the area much quicker, smoother, and less stressfully.
You would hope so. Goodness knows it's taken long enough to achieve it. And that, I think, takes us to Guilt Minute this week. Of course, Guilt Minute is the quick break in the show where we ask for a tad of financial support to keep the lights on and the hosting running. If you feel the Motoring Podcast is worth a small consideration every month, then you can become a patron. Different levels of patron include different levels of commitment from us to you, including being able to watch the show recorded live. Hello. We also have a small range of merchandise in our spring store, from stickers to mugs and t-shirts. If you don't have any spare cash, and we completely understand, then you can help us by following for free from a podcast player to receive every show as they're released, and by liking and rating the show in whatever way your podcast supplier lets you. If you've done all that, so do so, thank you very much. then the last thing you can do is to recommend us to your friends or colleagues.
Thank you, everyone that does. Okay, new car news. And joy, oh joy, we get to talk about an electric car, not an SUV, but first up, it's a car. The Mazda 6 will be, or the Mazda 6e, will be coming to the UK in 2026, and it will be a rear-wheel drive electric fastback. This is basically the EZ6 that's in China that we talked about a couple of months ago, I think, because we were gobsmacked that somebody was bringing an electric car. And it has a lot of what you expect from Mazda, which is their very, very mature, very stylish styling, although it does get a bit tricky around the back because it's been optimized.
It's optimized for aero. It's got that sort of cam tail that you see on Prius and stuff like that.
Yeah, so that's less resolved, shall we say, aesthetically, but understandable because they're eking out to.
Andrew has a problem with it. I don't.
Yeah, I find it a bit jarring. But anyway, it's going to help with the range of between 300 and 345 miles, depending on the battery pack you have specified. They reckon it'll charge on the 68.8 kilowatt hour battery from 10 to 80% in 22 minutes, and that's cracking. The larger unit, which is a 80 kilowatt hour pack, can only charge up to 95 kilowatts. That takes 45 minutes. Brilliant. We're getting a car. That's great. Okay, we've got to wait till 2026.
And a good-looking one at that.
Yeah, and a good-looking one at that. And we've got to wait till 2026. The pictures that we see in the Autocar article that's linked in the show notes, we think, having discussed this before we came on, are possibly the Chinese-only spec because that's the only vehicle that we've got to look at up to now. And as you would imagine, the interior represents what the Chinese market expects more than perhaps we would, i.e. no physical buttons that we can really see.
Yeah. We'll see what happens with that because Mazda traditionally, have done much better with having a haptic feedback.
Yeah.
And, using dials and things to work entertainment systems and also having a reasonable number of buttons for important functions around the cabin. So that may change.
Yeah, I would hope so.
As it is, it's got a 14.6-inch touchscreen.
Prices are expected to start below £40,000. So, cool. Excellent. More of this, please, car manufacturers. More of this.
Yes, exactly. Well, you say that.
Yeah. Because we talked about good looking.
Yes, exactly. Well, CES has been the last couple of weeks, and I don't know. I think that there was pretty. There wasn't a lot of car stuff coming out of CES that was of relevance.
There was not as much as there has been previously. Yeah,
absolutely not. No,
and that's thankfully
no big Ford announcements.
Yes,
yeah, no big Ford announcements, anything like that, which has happened in the past. So possibly the major car announcement out of CES was the Honda and Sony. Which we've talked about before when it first announced and previewed, but the Honda and Sony combined car, the Afeela 1, which just sounds like a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Afeela 1 what?
Well, exactly. Well, it's not that I feel a lot of passion for the outside or the inside of this, really.
Or the technology.
It is, I think our challenge with this really is that it is generic Blando car, and generic Blando car is fine if it's generic Blando car prices, but the starting price for this is $89,000 for the Origin spec, and that climbs when you go to the signature spec for $102,900. For that, you get exciting things like 21-inch wheels, extra screens for rear seat passengers, and extra cameras. All you need to get your name on the waiting list, if you live in California, is a refundable $200 reservation fee. It gets an estimated EPA range of 300 miles, but there's no real word on battery capacity, power output, any of these kinds of things. Supposedly, It has 40 different sensors, and you can tell this from the front of it because the front of the roof is all lumpy and odd, to enable autonomous driving. And it's incredibly fancy advanced driver assist systems. That means because it's got advanced driver assist systems, then the rule of the world is that it must have a yoke instead of a proper steering wheel, it seems. And also it gets a media bar, which is actually outside the car. This surprised me. It's outside the car, it's in the front bumper, and it can display messages. Wonder what we'd want those to be.
Yes.
And stickers and icons. So instead of bumper stickers, you can have a little bumper emoji.
Because what I want from somebody driving in the road near me is to spend their time selecting what emoji they want to display on the front of their car.
Well, you can do that because, of course, it's got lots of driver assist systems.
Well, there's so assisting. Have you noticed on the interior picture that there is a digital wing mirror as well as a physical wing mirror outside the car?
No, I didn't. But now you say that, yes. And the third of the four, you're right, the third of the four of the four images illustrating this Top Gear story does show both internal and external wing mirrors, yes. Anyway, lots of it's an odd one.
It's not going to sell, not for 90 grand. Good God.
I don't know. Lots of Californians looking for new cars now.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I am having trouble envisaging the success of this vehicle, but then you look at it and you look at stuff like Lucids. Lucids are kind of selling, and they're more expensive than this.
They're also better looking.
They are.
Significantly better looking.
Very nicely finished as well.
Anyway, we're going to stick with Honda, but this is Honda's own outpourings this time. They revealed 2 new concepts. I think new is very much doing a lot of heavy lifting here with one of them, that's for sure.
Well, one of them's new.
Yes.
The other one is the same thing they've been showing off for years.
Yes. There is the Zero Saloon or the Zero SUV. Now, the Zero SUV is aesthetically challenging and
odd.
It reminds me of the Polestar 3, but they've really beaten it with a big stick to make it uglier.
It is a Polestar 3 whacked with an ugly stick. I quite like the grille at the front, but I don't know what's going on with the lower bumper, and I really don't like the back.
No, the back is very odd, and inside, obviously, they've got a job lot of these yokes. This time there is actually just digital wing mirrors, which, as Honda seemed to do, as they did with the Honda E, is they put the cameras, or screens for those, in a place that's not where you would look if you were looking for a wing mirror. But never mind.
I'm sure that it's something you get used to, that one. I don't know. I've not had enough experience with them. But it's a bit like having the dials in the middle. The dial binnacle in the middle.
You would learn to where to look.
You do get used to it.
Yes, you would.
Yeah. So I think that there's a certain amount of that might be sort of, mojo problems.
Yeah, but I don't... They don't seem to be maximizing the space. The boot looks really tiny, even though there's a massive overhang. Plus, it gets all constrained, so it's not deep, and it's a funny, odd shape. There's 2.5 seats in it. Considering it's a bespoke platform, they could have made that 3 seats across, considering how wide the thing looks anyway. It just feels like it doesn't feel well resolved, is how I'm trying to kindly put it.
I think Honda is finding its way in this marketplace, and it's still at very early stages of doing that.
Which is shocking considering how far we are down the line.
Yeah, totally.
But I think that reflects the Japanese manufacturers full stop, though. They've all still seemingly
I think that's the case,
are caught out by the fact that so much of the rest of the world is going electric, and they still haven't caught up.
Even when they had a head start.
Yeah, exactly. But there is also the Zero Saloon, which is the car or the shape and design they have been wheeling out for, 15, 20 years, something like that. There's a little bit of apparently Lamborghini at the front end if you sort of squint enough, but it's just, again, poorly resolved. It's huge as well. I mean, it's absolutely massive, and that's without seeing anybody in context with it. The side profile is just awful. I don't know what they're trying to achieve.
I mean, the SUV will arrive first in 2026, supposedly. but it's going to be sold in the UK as well for the end of 2026. Larger 7-seaters are earmarked for 2027. 2 more SUVs to Spider's compact and small will follow, and a compact saloon due by 2030. So I don't think that, reading between the lines here, the Zero saloon is still that same old concept. It's not necessarily slated for production.
Yeah. Just, I think Honda have missed here, unfortunately.
I think they're still... it could well be the fact that they show everything in flat white doesn't help.
No, it doesn't.
The old story. It doesn't show off a car. It shows off. It's a bit appliance-like.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say that because I'm not one of these people who goes, it's electric cars or washing machines and all that kind of rubbish. Because that is just rubbish.
But that's not helping. That is not helping the optics.
No, it doesn't.
But also, I can't get excited by a design that we've seen so many times, wheeled out so many times. That's my problem.
That, and also when you see it under lights like that, then it loses a lot of detail. So there might be levels of subtlety and niceness in the design that we just can't see in these pictures.
Okay.
It happens very often.
Yes,
the face that's being pulled right now is amazing.
Let's go with that and hope that is the case.
Incredibly generous.
Let's hope that is the case.
Yes.
I know we put the boot into so many of these manufacturers, but we just want them all to do well and produce good stuff.
It does sound and feel like it, doesn't it?
But just produce good stuff, please.
I'm in a very charitable mood today.
You are very much. Well, with that, should we go on to points of interest?
Whilst I'm feeling incredibly generous, and you, after looking at pictures of some of the new cars, might want to sort of clear your brain, then you absolutely can. Evo Car of the Year 2024 video is now out. It came out on the 11th of January. And of course, it's the usual stunning cinematography and talk about the contenders, as well as going on for a verdict. So the contenders this year are the Aston Martin Vantage, the Morgan Plus 4, the McLaren Artura Spider, the Porsche 911 ST, Mazda MX-5, yay! Toyota GR Yaris, yay! Ford Mustang Dark Horse, the BMW M4 CS, and the Audi RS6 GT. And I have to get in there with the silly voices and silly noises before somebody else does.
I resemble that statement. Yeah, no, it is fabulous. It's fabulous. It's 43 minutes of wonderfulness. Do enjoy, if you've not noticed it come through, be recommended to you on YouTube. Do click the link in the show notes and show some love to Evo, because this must cost a fortune for them to do it, and they do it for us every year, and I'm so thankful they do. You get to hear from proper experts explaining why they are saying what they're saying about a car, and I just love that we get that. And
there's a nice mix of different cars, price points, and all sorts of stuff this year, which is really good as well.
Yeah, they're very good at trying to do that. Anyway,
configurator of the week.
Yes, we are back to the configurator of the week, and this time we are going to go with the in linking into the good news story from the first half of the show. We're going to pick the Rolls-Royce Spectre. And we've not gone for like the black edition or anything like that. We're just going for the run-of-the-mill Spectre, he says.
This does have the classic challenge of some of the absolute luxury car brands, isn't it? There are no prices at all. So I'm sorry for those of you who would love us to point out just how much the hand-stitched contrasting colour Rolls-Royce emblems are in the headrests. We just don't know.
No. And there was no way I could ask. Okay. So, Alan, what did you go for colour-wise?
Well, I've gone very, very classic on this.
Okay.
I've gone the antithesis of some of the Black Series buyers. I have gone very much for a dark burgundy.
Okay.
Bohemian red is what I've gone for. And there's a theme with mine. I mean, I've gone for solid colour. I should maybe have made it claret over black.
No.
Classic favourite of the royal family. But no, it is gone for that dark burgundy across the whole of the car. No fancy satin bonnets, no fancy two-tone, just a silver pinstripe a silver coach line down the side.
Okay, I was very similar to you. I picked dark emerald as the colour, and I didn't go for two-tone in any shape. I didn't do bonnets or anything like that. I went for a gold coach line because that matched the gold Spirit of Ecstasy I decided would look good with the green.
Okay, I didn't. I just went for a classic silver Spirit of Ecstasy. I went for slightly bigger wheels, 23-inch, fully polished wheels, to go with the fact that I'd left all of the chrome in place, all of it chromey, and I really dislike. I don't like wheels where they're painted and polished.
Okay,
one or the other, and this is the same. Doesn't matter if it's a Nissan Duke, doesn't matter if it's a Real Spectre. I wanted metal wheels and I wanted a metal color.
Okay, because I also went for 23-inch, but mine with the wing spoke part polished.
Oh, right. Yes. No, I don't like those.
That's fair enough. I'm not really a major fan of all the wheels, to be fair, because the fully polished wheel, I feel, is for the bigger saloons rather than this one. But there we go. That's,
okay, I disagree, but never mind.
Yeah. What did you do inside?
Well, inside, I realized I forgot to change something. I have gone for quite a sort of the contrast interior. It's mostly grey and blue, and the Charles blue, so very pale Wedgwood type blue. And with any contrasting, so in stitching in the dash or anything, again in ardent red to try to tie it to the outside. Yeah, I was pretty, and I got rid of any of the silly sort of additional stitching on headrests and that kind of thing. But naturally, I went for the Starlight roof.
Yes, I went with the Starlight roof. I just picked.
Why would you not?
I just picked the one color for the interior mainly, which was Skivaro grey, and then because I didn't realize I could remove it, I've got the Mandarin stitching, and it's also got, which I wouldn't.
Oh, you see, I went through and I replaced all of that with the ardent red.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't want it to, because you could have the option of two colors, and I got rid of that completely because I didn't like that at all. That was not for me. And then I think I went for a high gloss veneer. Did I go for that? What did I go for? Yeah.
I thought I had. I'm not sure I did.
And then I just kept it fairly simple on the inside. So it's like it's not painted or two-tone steering wheels or anything like that. And it was the clock that was recommended.
No, I think I went for the more modern clock. I went for the black clock. I also left the illuminated tread plates as well.
I had the technical bespoke clock. What did I do with the tread plates? Oh, no, I did leave the illuminated tread plates. I unticked the electronic driver assistance.
Some stuff you've just got to leave in. I didn't. I left that in. But what I did also unticked was the rear privacy glass.
Yeah, I didn't have that either. I did decide that I would have the Lambswool foot mats. And that was about it.
Gee whiz, I didn't because any time I've been in a Rolls Royce with the Lambswool foot mats, I'm scared that I'll make them dirty.
Oh, I'd have to have
nice.
driving shoes in the footwell for me to change into. Like, there's no way I could just get out from them.
Yeah. As I also missed out smoker's package, by the way. Yeah, I mean, as someone who goes out of their way to find all-weather floor mats for their own cars, I just couldn't specify the Lambswool one. They're lovely, but they're not for me.
Yeah. In the show notes, you will find a link to the Rolls-Royce configurator, so you can play along at home. There will also be a link to Alan's version and my version. Like we say, unfortunately, there is no money indicated. As ever, if you have to ask, you can't afford it, etc., etc. And I know for certain I cannot afford it.
I would love to. If there'd been prices, I would have gone through and seen how expensive you could make something that was still tasteful.
That would be the challenge.
That would have been what I did. But as it was, I went for a light one. So if you guys decide you've got particular favourite personalisation or anything on yours, if you think you made a really nice job of it, do share it with us.
Yep.
On the socials. Andrew, and finally this week.
Yes, Alan.
Liberty Walk. Now, this was one that I didn't choose this. I want to make that completely clear. I saw what had been put in the show notes, and I thought, oh, right, that's not like you. Many of you, I'm sure, most of you will have heard of Japanese tuner styling house, perhaps. Let's call it that. Liberty Walk. They take sports cars and supercars, and they are infamous for their very heavily flared arches, often held on by visible fixings, for massive wings, for crazy stance in the wheels. Now you just look at the inside edges of the the inside edges of the stretch tires, and you think, "Oh, really? I'm not sure about that." And very, very low sitting. And they've done that to two. They've released 2 new kits, one of which is for the NDMX5, which is very much as you would expect.
Yep.
With, again, for goodness sakes, don't come across a speed bump, but it's actually, in a way, it's kind of cool. There's some aspects of it I really like, and some that I'm not so keen on, mostly to do with the stance, but I would rather decent wheels, decent camber. But the one that's really crossing some people to froth at the mouth this time around is that they have announced a kit for the Lamborghini Miura. Yes, you heard me correctly, the Lamborghini Miura. That one, the orange one from the Italian job.
It's
that Lamborghini Miura.
It's amazing.
I don't know if this will ever go into production. I suspect one may be built. If somebody's got a broken Miura, one may be built.
Or somebody very bored in the Middle East.
It's mostly a concept. I don't know. I think that there's a Miura's worth so much money, but that if something happened to one, then this might then end up on it, rather than bespoke panels and all the other things that might have to happen.
But we have to say that why this stands out so much is the fact that it isn't a bolt-on wheel arch with rivets visible, etc., and the wheels at crazy cambers and angles for the stance. This is actually quite, well, I don't know if tasteful is the right word. I mean, I love it, but it looks like it was designed properly.
Yeah, so if somebody decided to race a Miura as a GT car at the Nürburgring or at Le Mans, this is what it would look like, roughly, give or take.
Yes.
It's that kind of style. And what stuff I love about it is that when they've got bulked out arches, where they've got an air vent, then what they've done is they've included the fins, the classic, Miura, the sort of fins and eyelashes on each of those vents.
Well, they've kept the eyelashes at the front
as well, so it does tie in with the original. They've kept the eyelashes at the front, they've kept them at the side.
It's been really respectfully
on the side intakes behind the door.
I think
it actually has been, and it's this is
when did we say that with Liberty Walk? I mean, that's part of their charm, is the bloody mindedness of how they've gone around their work in the past. But this is like almost like a it's going to come across really strong, but it's almost like a love letter to it.
You could say homage.
No, I stopped myself from doing that. But it's almost like a love letter. It's going, look, this is a gorgeous design, and this is how we feel we could just make it a little bit better. Without,
it's really cool. If you're not sold on it, for goodness sakes, go to the show notes, click through to the Haggerty article with the pictures in, because it's actually really cool.
Yeah,
it is. I looked at it at first and went, oh. And then the more I looked at it, the more I liked it, the cleverer I realised it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Doubtless all the car designers who listen to us are now going to have a massive outcry. Tell us how wrong we are, but I think
as they break out their crayons to write angrily to us.
Don't. You just make it worse. Anyway, I think that's us this week.
I think so.
So, folks, we'll be back next week, same day, anyway. Don't forget, folks, that between now and then, you can give us any feedback, share your thoughts with the show at Motoring Podcast on Blue Sky, at Motoring Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, and on the contact page of motoringpodcast.com, hub of all our activities. Remember, you can support us financially via Patreon, and please leave a review or rating on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or however your podcast app lets you do such a thing. Andrew, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, if you've not got a semaphore, then you could try Blue Sky, which I still haven't been brave enough to check again since I stopped last year. If you search Crack Windscreen, you'll find my account there. Otherwise, you could try LinkedIn, which I have dipped my toe in and then come out again because it's awful. But if you use my proper name, you will find me there, and you can make a request to connect if you so wish to do. And Alan, how about you? What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch with me is probably Blue Sky, where I'm at AJP Bradley. That's Bradley. I knew there was something missing as I moved on there. As I say, we'll be back very soon. But until then, I've been Alan Bradley.
I've been Andrew Clues.
And safe motoring.